Vice President of the Geoscience and Advisory Branch at Baker Hughes. Let's begin by introducing our guest's impressive academic background. Mr. Duran started his journey at the University of Kent, where he earned his diploma. He then completed his master's degree in both industrial chemistry and chemical engineering from the University of Bologna in Italy. Following his academic achievements, Mr. Duran spent 21 remarkable years at Schlumberger, now known as SLB, where he started as a field engineer and ended as general manager in Brazil. For the past 7.5 years, he has been with Baker Hughes, where he currently leads the subsurface teams and manages all consulting practices, driving significant innovation and success in the organization. I am Piranshu, and alongside with me is Pratik, an undergraduate from IIT Ahmedabad. Mr. Duran, we are honored to welcome you to Petropod, presented by SP IIT Assam Student Chapter. It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. So, sir, besides this, is there anything you want to add in your introduction?
No. I want to thank you and the rest of the organizer for the invitation. I think it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to talk to you and to the largest group at the ISM, or how it is called now, ITT, the Indian Institute of Technology, and share a little bit about my journey and what we see in the industry.
Yes, sir. So, can we start with our questions?
Sure.
Sir, yes. Sir, my first question is, you have worked as a field engineer at various locations in both onshore and offshore sectors like Brazil, Africa, and USA, and also along the North Sea, and that too in 1990s. Sir, how was your experience?
As a field engineer, I think it was when I graduated from college. I think it was a very interesting first opportunity to work that provided me with a lot of responsibility very early in my career, and allow me to learn how to manage a relationship with the customer and how to manage a relationship with the crew. As usually as a wildland field engineer, you go to the well site with a set of equipment, a truck, an offshore unit, and a crew maybe of 3, 4, 5 people. So you learn very early in your career how do you have to create a successful team, because together with your operator, you have to perform the operation. How do you have to manage your customer expectation? So I think it was a very rich experience from someone that just exited college, and it was a very good opportunity to really learn management and customer management skill very early in my career. So very fulfilling. I would definitely advise anybody to do the same. Of course, especially 30 years ago, conditions on drilling rigs were different, no? So drilling rigs in the North Sea and drilling rigs in the jungle in South America were very different conditions, no? So you have to be a little bit adaptive because you will find that sometimes, your standard of living can be challenged. You can have very, very long working weeks, and you might be called on a Saturday, you might be called on a Sunday. So I think that the flip side of this is, of course, your personal life and your work-life balance sometimes can actually be challenged by working in the field, especially when you are on call basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, but I think if I look at the balance between the two things, is definitely something I would do again.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as we know that you are a person with a lot of experience in the industry. So, sir, you have done the field job also and the official job. So, which you had liked more, like working as a field engineer on the sites, or working in the offices with other people?
Let me sure I understand. You're asking me if I prefer the field engineer life or the office life?
Or office life, yes, sir.
I don't think that I can really say I prefer one or the other. My first management position was an evolution of what I was doing in the field, in the sense that after 5 and something year running in the field with field crews, it came two things. One was the opportunity to be able this time not to lead one operation, but to lead a group of operation. In myself also, I would see things that could be improved, that could be done in a different thing, that could be done in a more efficient things. So I felt it was the right moment for me to leave the field engineer life and go into a management position. So I think that for anybody that today works into a first line position, whether it's the field, whether you're in geoscience, it doesn't really matter. When you have when you are in that single contributor facing a customer, facing the work that you're doing, it always comes the point in time in which you have to kind of feel is it the right moment for me to start leading a group of people that do the job that I do, or I rather keep on enjoying and like the things that you do. The business of managing people is a complex business, definitely more complex than managing any kind of equipment. So it is very understandable that you have very smart engineers that prefer not to go into the people management business and rather stay with the technical excellency and deliver. I have friends that have done field engineering career for 15, 20 years. I've got friends that have been a reservoir engineer for 25 years, and their choice was I rather build excellency in my technical or my operational capabilities rather than go and manage a group of people. I think it's really two things. You know, you have to kind of feel that is the right time, and then of course the company has to have the need. So I don't think I prefer one or the other. I would redo everything I've done in the field. I will redo every single year, every single operation I've done as a field engineer. But also, I'm happy that at some point in time I had taken an office job and start managing field engineers myself. So I think it's really it's your calling, and then of course it's the opportunity that your company needs to have. Does that answer your question?
Sure, sir.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I am a little bit sniffly, but I have a little bit of a cold, so I apologize.
That's completely fine, sir. So the next question is, throughout your journey, what are the most significant challenges you have encountered in oil and gas sector, and how have you addressed them?
You're talking about the challenges.
Yes, sir.
That's what you're asking now. Well, one of the challenges I think that I have just mentioned to you, when you move from a field engineer to leading a team, the first challenging is that you suddenly have a lot of other graduates that you have to manage. So you have other engineer graduates that you have to learn to connect, but at the same time you have to learn to lead. So I think that everybody that takes a position to manage a group of people, and especially field engineers, which come and go to the well site, so therefore you don't have direct control of what they're doing because they are at the well site and you're in the office. I think that is definitely something that challenged me right at the beginning. And with some field engineers, of course, you almost have a natural fit because you match very well in terms of characters and everything. And some other field engineers maybe have different priorities in which is more challenge. But at the same time, you have to make sure that when they go they go and perform their operation, they are as motivated as anybody else. So I think that that is definitely one challenge that have marked my first year as a manager. No, and some people maybe have more experience before, but for me it was a learning experience all along. No, in which you learn how you motivate people, you learn how you create sense of purpose, you understand that different people are motivated by different things. You know, you can have people that are very motivated by money. You can have people that are very motivated by the personal recognition. You have motivate people that can motivate it through promotion, that because they feel that that's a recognition. You know, every person is a little bit different. And this, I think, is the big challenge, is because equipment at the end behaves all the same. You know, as long as you maintain it properly, you know, it will do what you ask them to do. But people, you never know. So I think the people aspect is definitely, I would say, the number one challenge for us. Other interesting challenges, of course, is that when you move continents and you move cultures as much as I did, you learn the importance of understanding the habit and the way people think. So the way that I had to deal with to learn how you connect with people, how do you understand what they do? You know, when yes means yes, and when sometimes yes means no, when no means yes, and so on and so forth. No, so it is definitely, I would say, another very interesting challenge that there is. And then, if you ask me, what is the biggest challenge uh, these days, I think is probably try to understand, you know, what the industry requires and how the industry is going to evolve. You know, we are definitely, whether we like it or not, we are in a transition period. You know, we have an energy matrix which is transforming, is expanding. How do you manage the skill set of your people? How do you manage your own skill set to deal with what you have in front of you? I think is definitely something that today takes a lot of my time. You know, how do I edge between, you know, helping Baker Hughes in consolidating their position on mature asset, but at the same time start looking at CCUS and geothermal. So how do you manage your own priorities into all these different fronts that we already have? I think is something that today is definitely a challenge for, I think, for myself, for Baker Hughes, and in general for the industry. No, the biggest challenge. No, so it was a long answer. I hope that that was what you were looking for.
Yes.
Uh, so the next question is that from LinkedIn we got to know that you have learned over around 5 different languages. So what was your inspiration about learning 5 languages? Like, was it for something special, or is it like related to work?
So it's mainly related to work. Norwegian, they would answer to you immediately in English, so that was very unsuccessful. But I think it helps you a lot in your work environment. Sorry, in your work environment. To be able to connect with people and create strong teams if they see that you make an effort to communicate in their own language, and this is why I learned, or I tried to learn as much as I could when I was in these different countries.
So thank you, sir.
Yes. Sir, as you mentioned, we are living in the energy transition zone. So the next question is, as a leader in decarbonization initiatives, what strategies is Baker Hughes implementing to reduce carbon emissions?
So first of all, what I would say to you is the first things that Baker Hughes had done is to actually look at his own emission, no, and the way that we produce what you call scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, no, and we create our pledge. And beside that, what we started a very meticulous internal process where we start looking at the products and the way that we produce our products. We start looking at how we perform our services and try to see where were the opportunities to reduce the carbon footprint. No, so this is an internally led initiative done through a life cycle assessment of our portfolio that has been very good. There's an internal team that leads this group and that has a very strong cadence, very clear results. What I invite you to do is that you can download online the sustainability report of Baker Hughes, and you can read through it, and you will see how we address our own emission. No? Because for us, for having credibility and go to talk to customer about how can we help them reduce their emission, we have to have the capability to show that internally ourselves we have reduced our own emissions. No, so that I would say was the first step. Now, the second step, of course, is how can we help other customers, our customers, to reduce their emission? And when you start looking at the evolution of the portfolio, you will see that as more and more attention was put into the energy transition, Baker Hughes as well started adapting some of the things. So I could talk to you for hours about this, but let me just give you just a few hints on things that we are doing, no? So that you have a little bit of an understanding. So the first thing is to do is, of course, what can you do when you construct a field, you know? So this is where it comes to operational efficiency. You know, if I can drill a well, if I can produce less water, if I can be more efficient in the use of electricity on the field, I will lower the carbon footprint. So that means the faster I drill, the less my artificial lift ESPs consume, the more I can minimize the amount of water, because water treatment is very energy intensive. No, the less water I can produce. So every time that I work on the efficiency and the effectiveness of the field, I'm automatically reducing the carbon footprint of that operation. No? So there's a lot of focus into that portfolio of more efficient, more effective production. Another part, Baker Hughes has two very large group, one that looks at the subsurface and all the subsurface services, and another one that looks at the surface, which is operation through generation, compression, and all that. The other piece which Baker Hughes has developed a strong portfolio is, besides CO2, you probably know the methane as well. It's a very large area of attention because of fugitive emission and flaring. So what Baker has developed is packages of technology that transform your flare into actual energy production, no? And in this way avoid the flaring, which is extremely negative to the environment, produce electricity, and then the CO2 that you can produce through that electricity, then you can inject it, no? And this is, I would say, the third piece is Baker Hughes today has an up-and-coming portfolio on capture technology for CO2, but also subsurface monitoring technology for CO2 storage, underground storage. We have been in the business of monitoring storages for a long, long time in North America and around. So CCUS is definitely a third big pillar of our portfolios. And then the last one is, of course, we are involved in a lot of studies and operation on geothermal. Okay, geothermal is definitely another part where we have developed technology. We are partnered with some startup which have some pretty innovative geothermal technology that is closed loop, so it's a lot more friendly to the environment because you don't have to fracture and extract the hot water. You just run a fluid, and the fluid absorb it. So this is what I would say. These are the four items that today we have already a strong portfolio. No? So I'll repeat it with you. So everything that has to do with efficiency of well construction and well production, then what has to do to eliminate flaring, then CCUS, carbon capture, underground storage, and then geothermal. Those are the four. Now, these all know the company always looks for opportunity to develop new technology and see. We have of course a lot of discussion with our customers on things that they need. So, what is the portfolio today? It might be different than maybe the portfolio that we have in 5 or 10 years, where maybe we have expanded to some other fields. But it's already pretty important today, and it's a big focus from our CEO and chairman all the way down on how does the new portfolio plays, with that horizon of the world moving into a different energy matrix, how we're going to play into that. I hope that gives you at least a good flavor of what we're doing.
So thank you, sir, for that answer. So, sir, the next question is it is quite a big question. So we know that a lot of countries and also big private and public companies are all nowadays investing a large sum of money in renewable energies and in different technologies which can reduce the CO2 emission or the greenhouse gas emission. But sir, you could see the difference that nowadays these companies are investing a lot in all this compared to the amount of money they were investing in 2000s or 1990s. So this company used to exist that time also, and that time also CO2 emission was there. And that time also this, and we were that time also we knew about these things that okay, sea level may rise, the glacier will get melted, and we know the consequences. But why is this that now only after 2020 or after 2015 Paris summit, this thing Paris agreement, that these things are coming into picture, and a lot of companies, though it being it private or public, they're investing right now a lot, but they didn't take much action 20 years back.
It's a good question, and I don't think that there is a single answer. No, what I would say to you is a couple of things. One is there's a lot more attention today from the public opinion to ESG of companies. No, so company today, especially in Europe, in the US, they are judged not only by their financial performance, but also on how they bring value to the larger community. And ESG, you have an entire department today in large financial firms which look not at financial performance, looks at company ESG performance. And this is because, of course, you had some pretty significant issues with companies that didn't have the same attention to ESG, and that created the catastrophic events for them. So I don't have to mention to you, because I'm sure that in your courses you have gone through the details, but if you look at an accident like Macondo in the Gulf of Mexico, that is an accident that almost killed the BP as a company. And for the shareholder of BP, this was a tremendous event, because it took a lot of value out of the company. So I think this would be my first thought is that because this catastrophic event brought a lot of attention of the public opinion around the ESG performance of the company, companies are asked today to show that they are caring about everything around them and not only their financial profit, which I think it's a very good evolution. Is very fair. Is not only about the environment, it's also about social responsibility and all that. And I think some companies are more mature and they don't even need now to have it separate. They just become the way they work. And some companies, they need to be more intentional and put more energy into this. So I would say that is probably the strongest motivator. So if company future is linked to their ESG performance, because that ESG performance becomes part of their actual market value, company will always take care of their market value. And this is the first thing. The second thing, which I think has created more attention, is when you want to compete in the market for young, brilliant mind, like I'm sure you have a lot of them there at IT, younger people live by the same values, in the sense that they want to see a company which is solid, is interesting as a technology that allows them, and to be challenged and to build a career. But they also want to see companies that are engaged with the community and with the environment and make the world a better place. So if you have to compete by talent, for talent, and that talent wants to make sure that they feel they are proud of working for a company that has that attention, then you have to meet that demand. You have to meet that query. And this is why, for us in Baker Hughes, it's so important to have this performance. And we do it in a lot of other things. You there behind me, I don't have the background because you might know or not, but when you put the active background in your back, you consume a lot more energy than when you do not have a background. And this is why I don't put them background. This is my little contribution, if you want, to the carbon footprint of the company, is to consume less energy when I have. These are small things, but you start putting all these things together, and then someone that wants to join the company says, "Oh, Baker is a company that really cares about the society and the environment and their carbon footprint and all that," and therefore people feel better about joining because they are proud. You have to be proud for the company you work for. It is such a fundamental thing. I think that for anybody that is employed, to go around and say, I'm very happy that I work for Baker Hughes, because I think this is a company that looks at the future, connects with the society, connects with the world, and is going to be around for a long time.
Sir, carbon capture is one of the most important thing in energy sector. So, sir, what advancements in carbon capture technologies are you most excited about, and how the Baker Hughes is working upon them?
So, look, there are two aspects to carbon capture that you always have to keep in mind. So let's start with something that connects to what I said. When you create a carbon capture and storage site, you have to make sure that this is very safe and secure for the foreseeable future generation. So there is an aspect around social responsibility and the way that you have to prove at any point in time that you're storing safely and for the foreseeable future your CO2. So everything that has to do with modeling and monitoring what we call the MMV, no, is very fundamental, because that at the end, I think, is going to be the business card to the society to say this is indeed a solution. I am going to store the CO2 that I produce safely, and nobody will always have to feel threatened that suddenly, you have a CO2 at surface. So I think MMV is where, we can ensure that the people understand that this is indeed a solution. And when you look at some of the latest events, you see that very often the resistance to do carbon capture, of course, comes from the fact that communities don't feel quite yet secure that this is going to be stored safely. So Baker has invested quite a bit on MMV. We already have an MMV offering. There's a digital platform that connects to this MMV offering. So definitely we put a lot of attention, because we know that that's a key parameter on your carbon capture storage. That's the first aspect. The second aspect of carbon capture, which I think is pretty exciting, is that one that a carbon capture project, 50% of the cost of the carbon capture capex in initial investment comes from the capture. Capturing CO2, it's a complicated business. Some of the CO2 is very diluted in the streams, all the way down to what is called direct air capture, which is the CO2 in the air, which is a fraction. Is really, really, really small percentage, no? But even the one from combustion of gases, you're looking at the highest you can get is maybe some double-digit, lower double-digit. So capture technology for making carbon capture as widespread as we want it to be needs to come to a cost point which is different than today. And I think we're probably going to see a few things coming out in the next year. There's a lot of projects. Baker Hughes has investment in at least 4 or 5 different capture technology that are going to come to the market in the next probably couple of years, little by little. But this is where you can industrialize carbon capture if you have one cost competitive capture technology and clear monitoring and verification program that allow you to show the society that you know what you're doing. So those, I would say, are probably the 2 things that excite me more, and where I think we're going to see more and more things coming in the next few years.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So the next question would be from my side that, sir, we know that now the energy mix of the world is led by that golden trio, coal, oil and gas. And it accounts for over 80, like around approximately 80% of our consumption. But sir, nowadays we know that a large sum of money is invested in renewables, and a lot of research and development is going on in hydrogen energy and nuclear power, and different countries they're amending their constitution and all the rights so that we can evolve this thing. So sir, in your opinion, how would our future energy outlook is going to look like? Like, how is this going to change the energy mix? And so how does Baker Hughes play like an important role, and how does it is going to take this change?
But if I tell you how the energy mix is going to look like in 10 years from now, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would be probably already retired, because it means I could foresee the future and have a crystal ball. Because there's a lot of, if you look at what the IEA says, if you look at some of the energy reports from BP, if you look at what the largest oil and gas producer of the world, which is Saudi Aramco, looks like, you're going to find relatively different forecasts. So there is a lot of opinion about this. So the only things that I can probably tell you relatively sure is that they're probably all wrong. So we don't really know how this is going to look like. And so I think it's more interesting to think a little bit about what are the drivers, because all the things that you said, photovoltaic, wind, hydrogen, CCUS, geothermal, how does this place, will depend on two things. One, the technology development that allow this to happen, and second, what are the policies that every country and the United Nations and the World Bank are going to implement, because the policies have a very strong influence on how you finance these things. The energy industry, it doesn't matter how you produce the energy energy industry has one thing in common: very, very, very large investment. They take years to be paid back. So you are going to do such an investment only if you have the relative certainty that in the span of 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to get your investment back and you're going to make a profit. This is why policy is very important, because even if you are developing new technology, but the policy do not support you from a cost recovering, tax break, market symmetry, like on carbon credit, if this is not supported, you're just not going to create the right environment, So I think it's difficult to know how it's going to look like, but what I can tell you for sure is that it needs, there's trillions and trillions of dollars that are needed for us to transform the energy matrix in the next 15 and 20 years. And therefore, you need availability of trillions and trillions of dollars, and you need policy, and then you need the technology development. Why this is important to remember? This is very important to remember because anybody that think that the energy transition is going to happen fully in the next 5 years, like sometimes you see, oil and gas oil consumption going to zero, all these forecasts are completely wrong. And the reason they're completely wrong, because they don't take into account the investment that has to go into new energies for you to achieve that. So, and it's very harmful to put that, because it actually confuses a lot the public opinion and confuses a lot of policymakers that do not understand this. So the reason why the way I look at this is actually an energy expansion is because the energy matrix need to expand so that in time you can start being selective of what you want to keep or not. Okay, so if you have gas-fired power generation connected with competitive and safe CCUS, that's a great source of energy, because gas is very abundant. As you know, in India, all the companies that you have there, ONGC and Oil India, they're investing in gas fields. So gas is an abundant source. It can be burned very efficiently. You can use turbines to do small generation, medium generation, large generation. The CO2 that you have, you can capture it and you can store it underground, and you have a zero carbon footprint with the technology that is already mature, because gas production is a mature technology. Electricity generation out of gas is a mature technology, and CCUS is going to be a mature technology by the end of the decade. So at that point, you have something which is technologically and operationally mature that can decarbonize significantly the energy matrix, because then you start getting rid of all coal and you can produce electricity, then you put it together with the battery. So that is, if you want, a practical way of looking at the energy transition. And in that way, when you look at that, you say, well, if I have a strong electricity base matrix that comes out of gas, then you have time to deploy maybe more wind and more solar, remembering that wind and solar are by nature intermittent. So they will never be the only answer. You have to have wind, solar, battery, and the gas will play a role probably for the next 50 years at least into the energy matrix. So I think the big question is going to be how quick is going to be the deployment of electric car. But then I go back to what I was saying to you. It is a matter of economics. If you look at the incredible evolution of China, I was in China 3 weeks ago. I went to speak to a very large conference, and I was looking at the cars in the highway. Almost one car out of two is already electric, the one that you see in the cities. So can you deploy that fast everywhere? Probably not. You're probably going to have countries which will take a lot longer to move to electric cars. So the production of oil in order to make fuel is still going to have a relatively long tail, because you're still going to have a very large part of the fleet that is still going to be moved by conventional fuels. So this is what I'm saying to you. I think that without going into numbers, which is always very difficult, the way I see this is that oil will eventually plateau and go through a long tail to maintain the fleet that you have now. I think if CCUS become a good answer, I think gas will remain a very strong energy source for a really long time. I think solar and wind are going to keep on picking up. They've been growing tremendously, but I also think that does that make sense for you? Is that the same thing that you're hearing there?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, yes. Actually, it is like almost same the thing that we generally expect from our professors also. So, sir,
Yes, sir.
this is now. Thank you for all these questions, and this is now the end of all the technical questions, and we can move to few non-technical questions. So, Pratik.
Yes, sir. So first non-technical questions I would like to ask is, sir, you have been to many places in the world and many parts of the world, and you must have tried many cuisines and foods and all. Sir, so what were one of the favorite cuisines you have tried? Like which foods made to your favorite list, sir?
Which food?
Yes, sir. Like we have pizza from Italy.
Which is the food that I prefer by traveling?
Means from different parts of the world, sir.
Yeah. It's a good. So I'm Italian. So of course the food I prefer is Italian food. Okay. And then what I would say, my second favorite food is probably the food from the Mediterranean Middle East. So Syria, Lebanon, all that part, I think is very good food. And then the third food that I probably prefer is Indian food. And even when I travel to the Middle East, in the Middle East there are some very good Indian restaurants, and when I go there, I try to eat. I have tried to cook Indian food at home. I'm not very good. I would love to be able to make naan bread, but it's difficult because you need to have a tandoori oven, so it's a very complicated operation. But so I end up buying in the grocery store. But this is what I would say. My top three, I would say Italian, Lebanese, and Indian. And I know that in India, I have traveled a little bit in India, and I know that India is a big country, so the food from one part of India is different from the food of another part of India. And I've got a few Indian friends. Some of them are vegetarian, some are not, and I ate different food there. So I know that the Indian cuisine has a lot of variety, like the Italian one. There's a lot of variety. So I know that, say, I like Indian food. It really depends on which part of India you are. But I would say in general, when you eat at an Indian restaurant outside of India, is always more or less the same menu. No, they have some 4 or 5 typical plates. So, but that's my top 3 list: Italian, Lebanese, Indian.
That's the next question would be, so like a few podcasts back, we had a conversation with one of the professor from IIT Madras, and he spoke about something about how the things works in companies, like the people who generally are good in talking, not much good in the thing that they do, rather than they who are good in talking and who do have some good communication skills. Are like sometimes when you get to a position, if you want to achieve like a president or like something a bigger position, like rather than there is a lot of politics in the companies. Generally in India, we do have those things like our companies generally have those people who are good in politics and good at managing people are generally at the top position. And the people who are good at their jobs are generally at the managerial positions, like they manage. They they are just at a lower level than them. So is this the same in Italy and other countries that you have visited, or the hierarchy is different there?
Let me give you my thoughts, and then we can talk about the different countries. So the first thing is the following: the complexity of the oil and gas or the energy industry. Let's talk about the energy. The complexity of the energy industry has increased. No, so if you look 20 years ago, you were drilling in mainly shallow water and land. There was no CCUS, very little geothermal. Nobody was talking about wind and solar. Nobody was talking about the energy transition. Efficiency was not really the focus. All you needed was just to produce oil. So today, the complexity of our industry is massive. You have all the energy transition dynamic. Exploration and production are now in HT, HP, ultra deep water. You are pushing recovery factors in the 50s. So if you look at the entire industry, the complexity has increased, I don't know how many times. Why this is important for the question that you asked? This is important because that means, and therefore that means that very seldom the result of an action doesn't influence other people, other departments, other projects. So why it is important to communicate, and I know it's called company politics, but I think it's a negative way of looking at it. It is really about collaboration, in the sense that if I am the vice president of geoscience, the team that I have in India, and my decision whether I put 5, 10, or 50 geoscientists in India doesn't only affect my business, affect the business of other parts of the company, because the drilling operation, the reservoir characterization, completion operation needed those geoscientists to talk to Oil India, to NGC, to Cairn, in order for them to make sure that there's a match between what they do. So if I take the decision that I'm going to put no geoscientists in India, it's my decision, I am going to affect with my decision some of my colleagues. And that, of course, you don't want that to happen. Okay? So the importance of communication and the importance of collaboration comes from the fact that as you grow inside the company, the results of your action will usually affect more than yourself. And usually when you have to take a decision, you will need other people that support that decision and say, this is the right decision. This is the right thing to do. So my personal suggestion to you is that you stop using the term of politics and you really start using the term of collaboration, because politics usually has a negative sense. And I'm sure there are people as well inside a company that try to use this to try to damage someone else, and maybe they think is not aligned. But the majority of the interaction and the communication in a company like mine at my level is because you want to achieve collaboration. It's not about politics. It is actually about collaboration. Is there some politics going on? Of course there is. There's always some other things happening, but that's represent the minority of the communication, not the majority. The majority of the communication is about how we can collaborate better. And then there's probably little later that is about politics. So that is in general, in any large company like mine, where decision taken by one person usually affect and influence others. That is general. Now, more to your question about different countries. Absolutely, there are countries in which the collaborative approach is expected, and there are countries where the hierarchical line is the most important. No, so what I would say, if I look at all the countries where I work, I would say that probably if I take the two extremes, I would say when you are in more like you are in Europe, it is extremely important. And even if it's people under you, you explain to them why you want to do something, because the European culture is that one of collaboration and inclusion, in which they say, you need to explain to me why we have to do this, and then I'll do it. You can find other countries in Latin America or maybe in Africa where you can just tell people, just do this, and they're just going to do it because you're the boss. And they're not going to discuss it. And maybe they even think about the fact that maybe that's not the right thing to do. But they say, well, you told me to do it, I'm just going to do it. And then you can discuss with me whether that of course helps the speed of the decision, but then what you also do, you also miss the opportunity that someone that maybe has seen a better way to do it, not to speak up. So I think there are pros and cons to everything. No, you can take decisions very fast by not doing them inclusively, but you can also increase the risk of taking the wrong decision where you do not access the general knowledge of your company. Okay, that makes sense to you?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for sharing so much knowledge, insights, and your journey. It has been an honor to hear your perspective on the opportunities and challenges in the industry. So, anything else you would like to add to your viewers, sir?
No, it was a pleasure to chat with you. I think is such a known and important institution there in India. And for us, India is a very important country. So I definitely will wait for the invite so that I have the opportunity to come and visit you. It is, I think, what you're doing of trying to help younger graduates and younger students to understand the industry and its complexity. It's a great mission, and I really praise you for doing this. I think it's a very valuable initiative, and I hope that I help yourselves, but more, the general community, which is going to listen to the podcast, to understand a little bit better how our industry works, because we need a lot of very good brains and good muscles to come and join.
Yes, sir. Thank you once again for joining us, sir. Your expertise and vision has been truly inspiring. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for further discussions with our industry leaders. Until next time, take care and keep exploring.